Greetings, students. This is Mr. Torgerson. Today we're going to discuss practice test 4-2. Let's begin. Question 1. Triangle acute, obtuse, or right. I'm asking you to use the Pythagorean theorem to verify if the sum of the sides squared is equal to the hypotenuse, greater than or less than the hypotenuse. So, is 7 squared plus 6 squared equal in value, greater than in value, or less than in value to 10 squared? So 49 and 36 is, comparatively speaking, to 100, well, that is less than 100 because 49 and 36 is 85. So because the hypotenuse is less or is greater in value than the sum of the sides squared, this is obtuse, this triangle. So, in other words, if that 7 had been a 9, 81 and 36, well, 81 and 36 would have been 117. This would have been an acute triangle. If that 7 had been an 8, 36 and 64 would have been equal to 100, and this would have been a right triangle. Question 2. The ratio of the side length on two similar triangles is 3 to 8. Remember, the side lengths is the square root of the area ratio, or the area ratio is the square of the side ratio. So I'm going to take these side length ratios, I'm going to square them to make them into area ratios. So if these are the side lengths, I can take the sides and multiply them together, and it'll be the area ratio, 3 squared to 8 squared, which is the same as 9 to 64. And then now if I ask this backwards, if I say if the area ratio was, for example, 16 to 25, you would square root it to get the side ratio. You would say it's 4 to 25. Question 3, Pythagorean theorem. This is a leg, so I'm going to say 5 squared plus x squared equals 7 squared. Now 7 squared is 49, 5 squared is 25, and when I take and subtract 49 and 25, I get 24, which isn't one of my possibilities. So I'm looking at the square root of 24 here. It's not one of the options. That means it reduces using the square roots. I told you we're going to be going over this over and over this year, multiple times. 24 is a 6 and a 4, or 12 and a 2. The 6 and 4 is more useful because the 4 becomes a 2 when it roots, because it roots evenly. So this is 2 root 6, or 2 times the square root of 6 is my finished answer. Question 4. The triangles are similar. So here, DC goes with SR. So I'm looking at DC 77 with 21. And again, I'm going to put one triangle on the top. Let's say I put this one on the top of the ratios, 21 and 12. So DC goes with SR. So in other words, underneath the 21 should be the 77. These two go together. Or you could say the longer lengths go together. You can say it either way. And then negative 8 plus 4x goes here. We're going to do diagonal multiplication here. Now you can do some reduction before you multiply, or you can just multiply as is. I'm letting you use a calculator, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal to multiply 8 by 21 and then 4 by 21 here. In other words, you can just do the negative 8 times 21, or 8 times 21 and make it negative. So negative 168 minus 84x equals, and you can do the 77 by the 12 here. And again, this can be just reduced somewhat before I multiply if I wanted to do some reduction there. Make things easier. I shouldn't say easier, make them smaller. So I add the 168 to the 924. I get 1092. Then divide it by the 84, and I get the answer. So I added negative 13, the value of x here. I should have been positive 13. So I've made a mistake here somewhere in the work. Oh, this is plus 84x. Because that's a plus 4x. Positive 13. Next question. SOHCAHTOA. Sine, cosine, and tangent. All right, so SOHCAHTOA, cosine is adjacent hypotenuse. I still have it on the board for the other classes, the Algebra 2 classes are reviewing it right now. So cosine should be the adjacent of angle Z divided by the hypotenuse on the triangle. The hypotenuse, again, is the longest side. Nobody should be confused about the hypotenuse. 41, the longest side is the hypotenuse. Now, the adjacent side, again, is dependent on the angle. Angle Z is adjacent to 9. Angle X is adjacent to 40. I'm asking about angle Z. So adjacent to angle Z is 9. So this is 9 to 41. If I was asking about angle X, it would be 40 to 41, the cosine ratio. All right, arc length. Arc length is a portion of the circumference of a circle. A portion of the circumference. So this is 45 degrees of the entire circle. The entire circle is 360. So this is 45 out of 360. And the entire circumference is 2 pi r. 2 pi times r. And I'll just put it in the bottom here. 2 pi times 6. And I'm looking for my answer here, x. In other words, 2 pi times 6 is the entire circumference. I'm looking for 45 out of 360. I can do this by doing 45 divided by 360. That's going to divide evenly. The 360 by 45, it's going to make a fraction of the way it is now. But 45 divided by 360, that is a ninth. Sorry, I'm coming back from the break. 360 divided by 45. That is actually an eighth. So I can take 12 pi over 8 as my answer here. Or I can do this as a decimal format. Or I can just do 45 over 360, the 1/8, 45 over 360, times by 2 pi times 6, or 12 pi. 2 pi times 6. So I will accept the decimal answer of approximately 4 7/10 in terms of the arc length. 4 7/10 feet. I'll also accept the exact answer, which would be 3 pi over 2, or like we said, 12 pi over 8. 12 pi divided by 8. All right, next items. We had some issues with these last week on the test, these surface area questions. So again, on this cylinder and the cube, we got 2 bases and a lateral area. So the base of the cylinder here is a circle. So the base on the cylinder is pi r squared, the area of the base. The radius here being 5, and again, if I give you the entire length across, that would be the diameter, and you'd cut it in half to get the radius. So the base area is 25 pi. That is in square centimeters. The perimeter of this base, well, the perimeter of this base is 2 pi r, the circumference, which is 10 pi centimeters. The lateral area of this circle is 10 pi times by 12, 120 pi square centimeters. I'm going to add these two together to get the surface area, 145 pi. So 145, 175, because 2 times 25 plus 120. So I'm going to add these two. I'm going to double the base and add the lateral area. So 170 pi. You can give me the decimal approximate as well. So I did 2 bases, 50, plus 120. All right, next one, question 8. Again, we're going to take the area of the base. In this case, I'm going to use the 12 by 10 as my base. I could use the 10 by 10 if I wanted. I just chose to use 12 by 10, 120. That is in square meters. So I'm using the 12 and the 10 as my base here, which means my perimeter of my base is 12 plus 10 plus 12 plus 10, which is 20 plus 24, 44 meters. And then my lateral area is again going to be perimeter of the base times the height. I chose my height as 10 here, 440 square meters. So I can take this 440 and I can add the 120 twice to get the surface area. So this will be 680 square meters. So Again, when you're working this, you can give me a decimal approximate here on question 7. I didn't type it in the calculator for you, but 170 pi is about 534 square centimeters. All right, for the pyramid, again, the pyramid is half the corresponding value in terms of the corresponding prism. I still do the area of the base, but I only have one base. And then the lateral area is half of the corresponding lateral area on a regular one. So the area of the base here is 6 by 6, 36 square kilometers. The perimeter of the base is still 6 times 4, or all sides of 6. Again, with the pyramid, the pyramid has to be square to get the surface area of it, so we can't do a surface area if the pyramid's not square. Now for the lateral area, again, this is a half of the corresponding perimeter times the height. So I'm doing this, I'm doing half of 36 times by 5 here. So that's 18 by 5, which is 90 square kilometers. And I just have the base plus the lateral area. Oh, and this is 1, 2, 3. This is only 24 kilometers. Sorry. That's only 24. 12 by 5, 60. 60 square kilometers there. And then 60 and 36 will give me the surface area. Again, I only have one base on the pyramid, so I only add the 60 and the 36. I don't add them twice. All right, with a sphere, it only has one measurement. Its radius, r is 12. And the form here is 4 pi r squared, as we practiced in class Thursday. So 4 pi r squared, that's the surface area of a sphere. So 4 pi times 12 squared. That is a formula-derived question, so that is not particularly one where it's going to make perfect sense why it's 4 pi r squared, unless you happen to take calculus as a senior in college, because it is calculus-derived, the formula. But it is the formula. So I'll take the decimal answer, 1,809, or about 1,810 square kilometers. I will also take the answer in terms of pi. If you prefer, you can do 4 times 12 squared and write the answer in terms of pi. Again, don't forget to put the pi next to the 576. So either 1810 is your answer or 576 pi with the pi next to the 576, not just 576, as some of you did last week. All right, so on the front here, I'm going to make these worth 5 each. This will be 50 points on the front of the test. All right, moving on to the next page. Give me a second to tape it down so it's easier for me to write on it. All right, that ought to work. To the top. Area of a polygon. So again, a polygon, we should do half the apothem times the perimeter. So the apothem here is 8. The distance from the center of the polygon to one of the sides is the distance from the center to the side, vertical or straight distance, not to the vertex, but to the side. So I've labeled the proper measurement here. So half of 8. The perimeter, well, it's 11.6, but that's one side length. I want the entire perimeter. It's got 5 sides, the pentagon. So I'm going to times that by 5 again to get my entire perimeter of this polygon, this pentagon. So 1/2 times 8 times 11.6 times 5. 232 is the area of this polygon. Again, it doesn't have measurements in terms of feet, so I'm just going to leave it as 232, and it's in square units, but it doesn't have feet or kilometers. All right, factoring. So the 18 here, it can be used with a 9 and a 2, but 9 and 2 make 11 when they add. It can be used with a 18 and a 1, but that makes 19 when they add. The proper use here is a 6 and a 3, which would make 9 when they add. Again, we can do the X factor method, which is what we seem to prefer in class from last year. So 18, we're trying to make the 18 into a 9. And the proper factors here are the 6 and the 3 because they add to 9 and they multiply to 18. So x plus 6 and x plus 3 is the proper answer here. This is going to continue to be an important concept all through Algebra 2, factoring. So it's useful to master it this year if you haven't already. If you have already, good job. Excellent job if you have already mastered this. All right, next thing, volume. So the volume of a cone or a pyramid is a third of the base times the height. 1/3 base times height for the volume of the cone and the pyramid. So I'm looking at this cone. The base is still the same as it was on the front. It's still the same as it was last week. The base is still pi r squared. So pi times h squared is 64 pi. Now the height I want is the vertical height. So I've labeled the vertical height here, the height from the center of the cone up into its vertex, its top. So I'm going to take 64 pi and times it by 16 to get the volume of this cone. So volume is 64 pi times by 16. Again, I'll take the decimal answer, 64 pi times by 16. Oh, and I forgot the 1/3. So I should multiply this by a third. It's a third of this. So I multiply it by a third or I divide it by 3. I'll take the answer of 1,072, or I'll take the exact answer. So this is about 1,072 cubic meters. Or I can just do this, and again, I got to divide this by 3, so I'll put the divide by 3 on the bottom. It's a third of this. Or I can put the 64 times 16 divided by 3. I could put this 341 1/3 times by pi. Would also be appropriate. All right, the triangular pyramid. The base is still the same as it's been. So the base of the area of a triangle is half the length times the width. So 1/2 of 6 times 8 is equal to 24. This is in square miles. So that is my area of the base. My volume again is a third of the base times the height. So I'm going to take 24 times by 5. And I'm going to take a third of that or divide it by 3. So I can take the 24 times by 5 and divide it by 3 like this. Or I can do it as 1/3 of 24 times 5 to get the answer as well. This is exactly 40 cubic miles. 40 cubic miles in volume. All right, for the prisms, the volume is just base times height because you just do the area of the base times the height. It's not a third. A pyramid is a third of a prism in terms of volume, but a prism is a full volume, area of the base times the height, or length times width times height, if you want to think of it that way. So the base, I can use either of the 3 sides, 2 of the 3 sides of the base. I'll use the 8 by 3. So that's 24 square miles. The height here would be 6. So 24 by 6 is going to be my volume. 24 by 6. Which will make 144 square miles. All right, the volume of a sphere. Again, this is a formula-derived thing, 4/3 pi r cubed. You're not going to understand why it's 4/3 pi r cubed until it's in calculus, but the radius here is the only measurement given, 5 9/10 of a yard. So this is 4/3 times by pi times by 5 9/10 cubed. So I'm going to take 4/3 times by pi times by 5 9/10. Again, to the third power, you use the caret key here, or you times it by itself 3 times. So I could do this as 5.9 times 5.9 times 5.9, or I can just use this parakeet with a 3. I am expecting a decimal answer here, 860. If you do give me the answer in terms of pi, it's still going to be decimal. So 860 cubic yards is my approximate value for my volume. All right, 17 and 18, I was gone last week, so we didn't get to talk about these yet. I'm going to put these on next week's exam. Don't worry about these this week. They're actually pretty easy to do. One of them is the Pythagorean theorem, and the other one is set them equal. But I don't know. I don't think I want to discuss them this week. Maybe if I change my mind, I'll show you how to do them if I change my mind. This is the Pythagorean theorem. The 2 legs squared and the hypotenuse, the longest against the hypotenuse. This is asking simply, is 9 squared and 12 squared equal to 14 squared? And it's just asking if it is equal. It's not asking if it's acute or obtuse like the one on the front. So 81 and 144, and then 14 squared is 196. And it's not equal, so no. And this one's asking you to set them equal. Since the lines are tangent, the lengths are equal here. So 4x minus 1 equals 2x plus 5. So 2x equals 6, so x is 3. Again, I probably won't test you on these two this week since I didn't get to them this week. So I was gone last week a few days. These other two I have talked about. So the arc KJL is just asking to go from K to J to L, all the way around. So from K to J is 59. From J to M is 96. And from M to L is 150. So this angle is in fact 301 degrees. And it's bigger than 180 because we went more than half of a circle. And the question 20 is the same deal. Half of a circle is 180. So E to B is this length right here. Well, E to C would be 180. So E to B is 180 minus 50. 130. I just finished.